Hello everybody, this is Surf, and today we'll be talking about something that could be of great use to you if you are playing Minecraft, Stoneworks, or just are interested in politics and geopolitics in general. Today we are talking about international relations theory and 5 subsets therein, those being realism, liberalism, constructivism, Marxism, and functionalism. All of these are different ways of viewing the political world around you, be it in a fictional setting or in the real life. So, we're going to start off here with realism and then work our way down. Starting first here with realism. Realism can be defined by its 3 core tenets: statism, survival, and self-help. Statism consists that the nation-state is the primary actor on the international stage. This differentiates it from all of the other ideologies I'll list in the rest of the video. Next, survival. The international system is anarchic in nature, making politics a power struggle between state actors. You can think of this sort of like the Cold War, or just sort of any conflict in which power defines who wins and who doesn't. Thirdly, self-help. No other nations can be relied upon to guarantee the survival of the other nations. Now, this is unique because it is a critique or simply a disbelief of interdependence. Provided your state is in a bind or somebody other state is in a very vulnerable position, this states that you ought not rely on other states to try to bail you out. This is sort of a call to autarky, whereas it's like complete self-sufficiency within a nation, and one that can sort of make you quite paranoid of those around you. One shortcoming of the realist school of thought is that it does not account for non-state actors. I mentioned this a little bit before, but with realism, it does not account for international charities or international organizations such as the United Nations or Interpol. Also does not account for multinational corporations like British Petroleum or Disney. Rebellions and insurgencies also do not exist within the sort of purview of the focus of realism. They concentrate solely on the nation state and really nothing else. Realism can simply be defined as a pessimistic view of power dynamics between a nation and its neighbors. This power is, of course, determined by its economy, military, and political capabilities. For an example of this, you can think of sort of Russia or the Soviet Union and its satellite states during and after the Cold War. Subsets of the realist ideology include classical realists, who believe that nations are aggressive by nature and expansion is only curbed by deterrence from opposing powers, while offensive/defensive realists state that nations in fact prioritize security and the existence of their own state above all. This can bring about a self-escalating situation, as a nation would build up its capabilities for defense, worrying their neighbors, thereby incentivizing the neighbors to build up their defense as well, thus perpetuating this pattern and be having a soft, unofficial Cold War between you and your neighbors. Now moving on to liberalism. This ideology believes that a state's preference, rather than their relative power, drives a nation-state's behavior. Unlike realism, liberalism accounts for the varieties of non-state actors on the international stage. These preferences, as previously mentioned, consist of things that make particular nation-states unique, such as cultures, economic systems, and government type. Simply put, liberalists believe that it is not power that drives states to action, but the disposition of the people that inhabit said nation. You can think of this like sort of how Western democracies react, and how, like the United States, for example, their foreign policy is shaped by the political party in power rather than the will of an autocrat or the military. Liberalism also believes that interaction between states is not limited to politics and security, which is called high politics, but also low politics, which includes economic and cultural exchange through individuals, firms, and other international organizations. Most notably, in contrast with realist thought, the world is not a competition of power, according to the liberalists, but also leaves plenty of room for cooperation and interdependence. As you can see, liberalism is not as pessimistic as realism is. Now, under the umbrella of liberalism, democratic peace theory seeks to demonstrate that liberal democracies have a very good record of not engaging in wars with one another, but, on the other hand, realists would vehemently disagree with this, citing the United States' reputation with democracies in Central and South America during the 20th and 21st century. Most notably, are the prime evidence for this is Operation Condor, when during the Cold War, the U.S. and the U.S. intelligence agencies would clandestinely eliminate, kidnap, assassinate political leaders in South America who were critical or opposed to U.S. interests. Thirdly, here we have constructivism, and constructivism is opposed to both realism and liberalism schools of thought, and is, in my opinion, the most meta of them all. The key tenet of constructivism is that politics is molded by ideas, values, and culture and identity within a given area. They argue that the state of the world is a social construct that is shaped by the ways in which nations give meaning to the material world. Simply put, how nations interpret the world around them dictates the ways in which they will react to it. That is constructivism in a nutshell. Constructivism defines itself by its criticism for the assumptions made by both realists and liberalists alike. The Marxist relation theory, like constructivism, rejects the realist and liberalist outlook on conflict and cooperation, instead isolating the factors that economy and material conditions have on a nation-state and its people therein. Marxists approach international politics from historical materialism, which makes the assertion that economic concerns are above all others the thing that perpetuates class division, which derives culture and the disposition of all of its people. Marxists observe the international reality of the world as a capitalist system in pursuit of wealth alone. Now, Marxist nations will try to sort of change this within their own systems. However, if history is anything to be believed, the Western nations slash the capitalist nations will do everything within their power to curb sort of these leftist movements for, like the Marxists believe, the pursuit of capital and of wealth, especially at the expense of those who call themselves the enemies of capitalism. Lastly, but not leastly, here we have functionalism. Functionalism relies primarily upon the cooperation and common interests between states. Now, we've already talked a lot about cooperation within the liberalist sort of ideology, but here, functionalism that's what it's all about. They took that sort of portion of liberalism, put it on steroids, and here we have functionalism. Functionalists observe that the more states become interdependent, the more likely it becomes for them to become even more interdependent. The more interdependence you do, the easier and easier and easier it becomes to do it even more. Like the European Union is probably the primary example of this in our world today. Like there's a central monetary system, they have their own currency, all of the borders are open, free, like a lot of trade, and it just shows how the more cooperation nations close to each other have and the better their relationships are, the more it's going to become a reality that they sort of mesh just a little bit and start sharing things over the international borders. What separates functionalism from the other ideologies above is that its adherents don't view functionalism as sort of an ideology like all the others, but see it as a principle and a consequence of friendly relations over the long term. So tell me what you think. What ideology I've described here listed what you think is the best? What do you think has potential for the future? What do you think's long dead in the past? And what do you think is most sort of realistic or functional to you in your sort of career in world building or just your perception of the world itself? Let me know in the comments. Talk to each other in the comments. Have a discussion in the comments about your thoughts and feelings on these different ways to look at international relations theory. I'm so glad to be back, and I get a better mic tomorrow, and everything's going to be great. Everything is going to be fantastic. I'll see you next time, and more videos are coming out real soon.